No, no, never love again. I will never, no, no, never love again. The love I lost was complete love. The love I lost was complete love. Hey, everybody. Pam will be coming on. I have to call in. I'll be a critical part of his phone call. Just listening. I'll ask the incisive questions. The love I love was complete love. The love I lost. I don't know what the rules are, but you ever get a song in your head? Kind of sad, melancholy. Makes me remember things a long time ago. All right, that's about all I think I can play without getting in trouble. All right, so I know you guys are watching GTII, and the last time I looked, that company had a market cap of 68 million. Last time I looked, Railtown AI had a market cap of 38 million. Which would you rather buy? 38 million Railtown AI or 68 million GTII? It's up to you. But that's what you're doing. You're buying, you're literally buying a piece of the market cap of these companies. My answer is right now, anyway, Railtown's a better get. The love I lost. I don't really have anything until Ham gets started. So let me see what your questions are. The love I lost. What? No questions. Henry Perez was first. All right, so let me see if there's any news. Do you know, yesterday I got pretty knackered at the end, but I've been trying to put across this, my view, and I just follow what I learned when I trained at Merrill Lynch so many years ago. Just stuck in my head that you got to follow a lot of different people. You got to follow different analysts, different people who predict. And then you'll find that for a while, somebody's riding a hot hand, and other times they're not. And so you got to be ready to move and all that. But I think you have to have a overriding theory or thesis of why you're making an investment or what the overall market's going to do. Anyway, I think the stock market is going to have a blow off top that's going to just give you 5 years, 10 years worth of returns as they used to be in about 5 months. It's up, up, up. Could I be wrong? The risk to that is the bond market, in my opinion. But once that happens, and I think the main rationale for it will be Trump, 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 Trump. So much winning. We're winning. We're winning. We're winning. We're sick of winning. And it'll be, oh, there's huge shorts and the hedge funds are caught in shorts. And it'll be, this time's different because there's so much money and America is exceptional and all that. Anyway, and everyone will be buying in. That's the time. I think it'll be so hard to get out, but that's the time to buy puts. That's the time I'm talking about 30% higher from here. And then I think we get the crash. And I think the crash will come out of the blue, or it'll seem to, and it'll be something in the news. They'll come up with it. Why later on? But the two whys that I think could come out of the blue are a sudden collapse in oil production somewhere around the world, or just the awareness that it's coming. And I would pick Garwar Field as possibly being that. Although I think Saudi Arabia has the ability to do some horizontal drilling. I'm not an expert in their fields, but I remember asking someone, and I was told they're drilling thousands of wells, which is a whole lot different than the Garwar field. That's a long time ago. That was a decade ago. Anyway, the other thing that I think could be the big surprise, shock of all shocks, is if the world found out that China only has 900 million people. That would shock the world. Because it would change the narrative on where demand for everything, and that could be it. I don't know. It could be something else. It could be a bird flu, which apparently there is. It could be war. I don't know that war would destroy the market. It depends on what kind of war. It could be a bank run. Yeah, it could be a bank run. Anyway, it'll be something that nobody expects. That's the key. It'll be whatever pops the massive up, 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 up and away will be something no one expects. It won't be commercial real estate as it currently, the disaster as it's currently described. It could be that there's such a huge default on manufactured mortgage products, commercial debt products, that the effect of that is enough. Anyway, we'll find out. We'll find out. All right, here's Michael Anthony's back with PFE. This is best in show. PFE's best in show. The PE has dropped from 39 to 18, so it's an obvious buy. They have big revenues, and the earnings beat. Oh, man, you want to get in a stock where earnings beat estimates, and they have a 43-cent dividend, And the stock should be going to 35 or 40 by the end of the year. And with most upgrades to 32. So there you go. This guy, Michael Anthony, is here. He's on your side. He's got a stock idea for you that's going to revolutionize your life. And there it is. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Our chief weapons are fear, surprise.
William, you there?
I'm here.
Hold on. Hey, everybody, I got William here. William, welcome back. And
thank you.
I was just starting out with
Sure.
I wanted to talk about the brokerage stocks.
Okay.
They're the opposite, which I've always told everybody. Our stocks are going to go up, they're going to go down, and they're taking it out on Goldman, down from 672, down another 25 today. Jefferies, Interactive Brokers down 20. All these things are shorts. I've been saying that for a long time. Get the hell out of them. These companies are going to take a beating when these stocks get squeezed. Right, so you can just see it starting to fall apart down as a group. That tells me something's coming on. We don't see it on our side, but I see it on the brokerage side. The brokerage stocks are getting destroyed. All right, they have big moves up, but now they're getting destroyed, which they deserve. But they're all getting hit. They're all getting hit hard. All right, that's the opposite of a short squeeze. Are the people that are short losing their value, and that's what we're seeing. Robinhood hit a high of $66. I didn't see that. It's down another $6, say to 38. I mean, so these things are taking a bath, all these stocks. All right, so I just wanted to let you know about that. So I went to see some people that are very familiar with the Chinese market, the Chinese government, and the news from overseas. And they're people like us. And I just want to give you what we're hearing about finger motion from people that got there. They're from Hong Kong, and they're much better at hearing things than we are from over here. All right. So I'm going to give it to you, and you take it with a grain of salt. This is the rumor. This is, again, I'm just passing on what I'm hearing. If you don't want to hear it, hang the fuck up. I couldn't give a shit. All right. What's going on in finger motion? There is going to be someone that takes a 10% stake. They cannot get the name. It's top secret, government, whatever. They can't get it. The big multi-billion-dollar corporation, they said, we don't know where, when it's going to happen. I do not know. They also said there's big funds buying the stock out of Asia. Okay, they're accumulating it. People, they're not here to drive the stock up. Accumulation is how they're doing it. All right? They have to be up to around 2 million shares already, he said. And they're just going to keep buying and buying and buying. They said the short seller is from the U.S. Obviously, we all knew that. It's not from, not from the Middle East or, anywhere other country. It's originating out of the U.S. So obviously, that's got to be ties to Lynn Partner. They knew a lot about the short, things that I didn't know. And, I'm not going to bore you with all those details on that. It is monstrous. They all agree on it. They think that the funds are going to light this thing up, and when they announce the stake by whoever company that is, that'll just finish the whole thing off. What day, what second, I don't know. But you can see by the stock's action, there is no selling. All right, there's no volume. So someone knows something's coming. All right, because these guys have been so aggressive, and you can see them still aggressive in DJT or GameStop. They're still selling those things. They haven't let up. But they have let up in finger motion. So I believe that where there's smoke, there's fire. I think something's coming. I'm not acting on it. I'm not buying anymore. I'm not selling. I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting back and waiting for what's going to happen. All right. I did as much homework as I possibly can. I'm comfortable. If the stock was $20 or $30, I would be uncomfortable. Where the stock is, I told you before, the risk in this stock, me and William both said the same thing, is up. We know there's a bunch of things coming up, whether it be earnings, whether it be contracts, whether it be dividends, or the Roth report. The CEO said he's meeting with Roth this month. That was at the conference. Someone posted that. The guy Frank posted that. You can see that. They're very excited about the insurance business coming up. So there's a lot of major things coming up for this company. It doesn't have anything to do with the U.S. and China. No fight. It has nothing to do with that. Excuse me. This is business done in China only, and that's what we're talking about here. William, did I miss anything? In case I missed anything, I don't know. I'm taking
No,
some
but
medication.
I think you did fine.
So again, you do what you have to do. You want to get out, get in, get out. There's not going to be a sign from the heavens. It's just going to happen. That's the one thing they did say.
So somebody's been accumulating, and then somebody else is going to buy in? Is that what you're saying?
There's big funds, hundreds of billions of dollars of funds, big Asia funds that are buying in. Now, do they know that there's going to be someone taking a stake in it? Well, my guess is that, they heard something and maybe they know something, right? And they're buying in before the news comes. So that's my guess on what the situation is. I don't know who it is. Again, I'm not there, but that's the word. And you could sit there and say, well, we don't know. We don't see it. I don't see it. It's bullshit. Well, it is what it is. That's the game. And if you go back in time, I was looking before, Warren Buffett was buying Jeffries every day, was acting well, but no one knew why. And all of a sudden when he did come out and say he did own the stake, everybody's like surprised. Oh, how'd Warren Buffett get all that stock? You just don't see you guys don't see the accumulation. You just won't see it. Professional people like myself, I can accumulate stocks and you wouldn't even know I was even there. All right. So these guys know the tricks also. You don't run a couple $100 billion and not know how to do things. Their game is they have to buy stock. And it just doesn't come easy. But eventually they'll move up from this level. They'll move up to $1.50. Then they'll move it to $2, then to $3. And that's how they're going to keep accumulating it. If they can accumulate, 5 million shares, 10 million shares, let's say, it takes a little time to do it. When they see something for sale, they'll take it. I'm told everyone knows about the short over there. Everyone knows about it. Chinese people cannot buy because their money can't leave the U.S., can't leave China, excuse me. So it's very difficult for them to buy the stock, or they would. So people who actually have money offshore can do things. Funds can buy it, things like that. So any other questions?
Do you have any comment on GBUX?
Yes, I do. I'm hearing a lot of upcoming events coming out. I heard the shorts calling around looking for stock. I heard that again. But, the stock acts great. They try to knock it down 3 or 4 times. Listen, if you own that firm has been notorious as a front for naked short sellers for a long time. I can only imagine the owner of that firm telling that trader, we don't want those orders here anymore. That's number one step. Because if anyone does investigate the firm, they'll find all the other devious things they did. Also, the guy that's giving ASCM the orders, the hedge fund, the naked short seller, all right, it has to be a past relationship. He just didn't call up GBUX and say, hey, this is XYZ. Can you open an account with me and I can view the naked short the stock for me? I doubt it. So it's a relationship, someone they know, someone that, the short seller is tied to that firm, has done other trades with them. And I'm sure the owner of that firm is like having a canary here that he's been exposed and his name is all over the street, right? It's not fun to have your name all over the place, but, it's times have changed. The bad guys always got away with it because no one ever fought back. And you fight back, you expose them. You don't want your name all over the place. They don't want their name. They don't want the regulators, the SEC, Secret Service, anybody knowing their name. And now they do. Everyone knows who they are. Right? And I'm telling you, that firm is going to pull the plug on this guy soon, and I expect that stock to take off. Like I said, owning one share, it could be something that you could, make a nice payday, make $20, $30 on when it does go. It's short over 2.3 million shares. We've been reporting it every day. And like I said, every day, if you look at it, 2.3 million. If you just do 10,000 a day, It's 50 a week. It's 200,000 a month. These numbers go up fast. That's just 10,000. You do 20,000 shares a day. The numbers go up. So they basically dug a hole. They trapped themselves. We exposed it. And now they're popping up. There's all kinds of things going on around about it. People, this is how you make money in the stock market. You just can't throw a dart. I'm not a believer in hopping from AMC to GameStop to this one. I don't do that. I'll stick with what I know, and I'll figure it out and go along down the road. If the story changes, then I'm out. The finger motion story has never changed. All right, the only thing that's changed is that the company raised money at $1.50 with Worth Capital. That was it. Other than that, the story's been the same for a long time. And as they drive in revenue and get bigger, the story only gets stronger. The stock never goes up, but the story's stronger than it was before. Anything else, William?
Well, how long do you think they'll take to accumulate 5 million shares?
Well, we're watching it very closely now, so I have a couple people watching it. So,
will it be evident in the volume, or it's done?
Yeah, you're going to see. I think you're going to see it the same way as Root. Listen, when shorts is trying to cover, they have to spike it up to get sellers, right?
Right.
That's what they did in Root. When longs need to buy a position, and there's no more selling, like you see now, there's no more selling. They were selling below 120, they were laying into it, right? Then it went to 140, they laid into it. Mm-hmm. Now on the pullbacks, there is no selling at all. Mm-hmm. So what they're going to have to do, they're going to have to push it up. I expect them to push it to $1.50 shortly to see if there's any selling from the people that paid $1.50 for the secondary. Mm-hmm. That's where I expect to see if anybody who bought in the secondary wants to sell it, these guys will probably scoop them up. So that seems like the logical spot to be next, $1.50. There's nothing going on here, so it's going to move to $1.50. When it moves to $1.50, if those people who bought the secondary want to sell it, they'll bump into
each other. So get some volume there, yep.
Right, that's where I think the first step is going to be. So, like we said before, the downside in this stock is up, and it's going $1.50 is the floor. So that'll be the fight. And if the funds want to accumulate it, they'll grab those guys and suck all this stock up. That's what's going to happen. That's going to be the battle spot right there.
That makes sense.
So that's where I expected to see it. But there's real buyers here, real big funds. If the stories are true and the rumor of the 10%, it's not 15%, it's 10%. They were very adamant about that. I said, I heard 15%. They said, no, it's 10. So again, if anything, I cleared up the rumor I heard was 15, it's 10. So a 10% stake by 10 cents, Alibaba, whoever it may be, whoever those big players there. Once that happens, game, set, match, see you later.
If somebody's coming in to buy 10%, are they also going to provide funds to finger motion somehow? Financial backing? Loan?
If they buy 10% of the company, let's say the stock is $5 and they sell 10%. What's 10% of 60 million shares? 7 million shares at 10, they buy that. 10%, they buy 6 million shares at $5 is $30-40 million.
So a fund might be buying 5 million, and then they buy 5 million, and they
well, the fund is buying friends. 5. If the fund's buying a couple of million shares, who they taking out? The shorts, right?
Right.
If the shorts are selling it to them, if the shorts are going to sell it to them, these guys they're gonna bump into it. They're gonna basically make the short worse. Longs aren't selling, so the short will just grow. It'll make it worse. And if they buy, let's say they buy 5 or 6, 7 million shares, and these guys get short more, and then the 10% stake comes behind it. You're talking about, forget it. These guys are going to get ripped apart.
You need some vitamin C.
Yeah. I mean, I feel good. It's just that the throat's, I had a nasal drip from allergies. I have had allergies.
And it's dry on a flight. It's probably dry.
I was on a plane coming back on a red eye. I don't know. They had the air conditioning on the plane. It felt like it was 5 degrees on the plane. Unbelievably cold, but, it is what it is. But
at least you weren't on a flight with.
it was. I just saw that it was on Twitter. It was from India or something like that.
Backed up toilets. Oh my God.
Uh,
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
10 hours.
And so you guys got everything I know. It is what it is. You just watch it. Again, I'm not a waiter. Everybody knows the story now. What I heard, everyone knows what it is. It's not a $50 stock. Again, high price stocks are dangerous. Low price stocks, this stock has been unfairly held down by short sellers. And you can see every time it starts to move up, they start spoofing the volume increase. But those walls are coming down. There's real people coming around. So that's what we're hearing.
GBUX has very low volume. Does that mean anything?
That's the best thing in the world. People are buying it and accumulating it. And if you're the short seller, how are you feeling?
Doing
right?
Doing good.
The short seller in that stock has got a major problem because it's so small, the company. Where are you going? Everybody knows you're trapped. Everyone knows who the short is. And that happened quick.
Yeah.
Let them do what they have to do. And the shorts are trapped. Right, listen, that stock is going to run up. And I think the pressure of the truck, and I'll put the truck back out again once the SEC, we know who the hell's in charge of the stupid place. Right now, we don't have any information yet on that. I don't know how long it takes to confirm somebody. Trump's been in office a month already. And Trump is listen, William, one other thing, I was on a call, and one of my good shareholders, friends of mine from Lehman Brothers, and I told you before, we have connections to Trump. He's trying to get me on the docket to get down to actually, tell the whole story about naked short selling he was with Cash Patel, and the gentleman has been with Elon Musk many times. He's in the Trump team. And he told me on Friday that he was going to set that up for me. So just waiting on that. They all know about it. I don't understand how they waited on it. Got me. All these companies now it's open season on the shorts. Obviously, the lawsuits are starting to move forward. And that's all. What happens in MMTLP and Northwest Bio is going to be great for everybody else. So cheer them on, stand with them as best you can. Anything else, William?
I don't know, unless you want to talk about the other stocks, the small stocks.
Nah, I don't want to talk. I'm tired already.
All right.
I'll do it another time.
Right.
I just want to give you an update, what I did, what I found out. I'm very confident, and I just don't have exact seconds. But you will not get, the timing is going to be bang, zoom. Not this, hey, look at this stock go, I'm going to go buy it. You're not going to get it then. So anyway, I just want to give everybody what I heard. And William, if you go on later, give me a shout. And if I feel better, I'll come on.
All right. Thanks.
Nice. You got
it. All right. That's the morning update. So Michael Anthony wants you to buy Pfizer, and I wrote it down, $26.74. Earnings per share, $1.41 as of right now. Dividend, $1.72. You can follow Michael Anthony, I'm sure, somewhere. But I would tell you, I think all stocks are going to, if I'm right, all stocks are going to have this run up. The main risk is if the bond market gives up the ghost, then my call is going to be wrong. But I would expect even these drug stocks will go up. But if you think Pfizer and Moderna and even J&J are out of the woods just because they were given immunity, I think you're a little off in your thinking. So I personally wouldn't, that's not where I would be rushing to catch a falling knife. But he's projecting, I guess, $35 a share on it. So you can move, as he puts it, you can get out of the pink sheet stocks and go make a lot of money in Pfizer. All right. Hey, Michael. No, I don't think so, Michael. Let me just do the mental exercise on that. If you move, number one, MMTLP are not shares. It's just not shares. It's not anything. MMTLP is as worthless as this chit that gives me this one that gives me $2 off on baby care wipes. That's what MMTLP is. It's worthless. But it is a placeholder, and it records your ownership of a promise that Wall Street made to you, which I think, look, don't get me wrong. There's fraud, there's collusion, there's racketeering, there's regulatory participation, possibly. There's a lot of areas whereby lawsuits, which will be prosecuted by deep pockets, not yours or mine, could generate enormous returns for us, for we who purchased MMTLP. Opportunity cost, misleading us on trading, taking away a short squeeze potentially, just a massive racketeering again. Don't get me wrong, there are avenues for a gigantic settlement or one that's much more mundane. And we'll find out. I think all of them will take time. But the key is your MMTLP is as worthless as getting $2 off any cold, cough, and flu or immunity products. It's not worth anything. So what is Nextbridge? Nextbridge is the I don't know what vocabulary word to use. It's the it's the butterfly from the caterpillar of Torchlight. Nextbridge is maybe more like a moth. Right now it's brown and doesn't fly very high. But Nextbridge is the original properties and leases and ideas and people and geologists that was Torchlight. And in the Torchlight presentations, there's 5 to 7 billion barrels potentially to recover in the Oro Grande. Torchlight was assaulted by criminals. And in my opinion, the criminal action is a coordinated effort by the largest funds in the United States at an arm's length, hiring criminal guys who are meatheads They couldn't change a spark plug. They can lift 150 pounds weights in both arms, and they can come on here and make fun, but they have no critical thinking. Just sell, sell, sell. Maybe a little. They have a white automobile fetish, or maybe they take one day a week off for higher spiritual things. I don't know. But these are not intelligent, trained, capable people. They're just low-life thieves, crooks. They're no different than any thug that you would run into late at night walking down an alleyway in a bad part of New York City. They're just scum. But anyway, I think the big funds hire them. For example, Kurt Kramer worked at 4 different, it might even be 5 different brokerage firms in the span of about 2.5 years. You can look it up. He washed out. He's no good, but he met somebody. Somebody taught him. Somebody said, hey, go meet this attorney Nadich. Take these documents, and if you can get a CEO to sign these documents, these investors will put up the cash, anything that you need, and then you just call this hedge fund, and this hedge fund will start shorting that stock, and they'll give you the money so you can go off on your way and your life will be changed. You'll be John Gotti. And they did it. They did it. And anytime you're caught, we'll finance it. We'll bring in Gibson Dunn. You'll settle with the SEC. No harm, no foul. You give up the warrants and you give up the profit from the transaction. But guess what? You're going to get a kickback from us on all the shares that are sold and we cover. So it's a road to riches beyond capability that you've never seen, but they're just crooks. They're meatheads. So that's what happened to Torchlight. I don't know if it was the Kramers. I bet they were in there. This is a tight, they all know each other. They're competitive, but they also understand they got to back each other up and join in. It's a criminal collusion on a grand scale. It's racketeering. But no one cares because they own the cops. And then they own Congress. And then the banks make so much money, they own Hillary Clinton. And then Hillary Clinton loses, we go to war with Russia, we do it through Ukraine, and all of a sudden the amount of money that's sloshing through Ukraine back to the Democratic Party and Biden and Chelsea and Stacey Abrams and Samantha Power, it's incredible, but no one cares. Even Obama got $2 million. But hey, it's all right. These guys, they're Democrats. They, remember FDR, remember Kennedy, remember civil rights. They're Democrats. I don't know, guys. It's time to stop thinking that way. We got to start holding everybody accountable. So Torchlight got destroyed. And John Berta was looking at, what do I do? What the hell hit me over the head here? He knew, I'm not saying he doesn't know what he's doing. He's very capable. I'm just saying he must have thought, I just got hit by a Mack truck. He picks himself up off the ground. He tries to create value for shareholders. And what he has is a shell. Torchlight, NASDAQ shell. A company out of Canada who I think's run, I've never met the guy, never talked to him, but I think is run by what turns out to be a good man, George Pelicanos. I might be mispronouncing that. But that guy has a company that's private, apparently had 500 patents, including breakthrough technology for batteries in automobiles and electric vehicles. But who needs that? Why not just let China get it, or Honeywell, or what we have to cater to is the criminals like the Kramers and the Eastons and the Rubensteins and others. I'm sure there's others. Any coincidence in the last names is just coincidence. And it's just because those are the only ones I know off the top of my head. I'm sure there's other guys out there, but the ones we've been dealing with have been the Kramers and the Eastons. And then Wolf, and those was that, I think his name's Ari Rubenstein, that guy and that's MMTLP as well. But I don't know any other of the names. So any coincidence is just a coincidence in the last names. The Torchlight shell had value. And so after a search, John Berta allowed Metamaterials to reverse merge into Torchlight. This gave Torchlight shareholders a private company with tremendous, we used to call them inventions, with huge upside, revenues, patents, and it gave Torchlight shareholders a way to make money over the long run. What did the criminals do? The cowards. They started selling MMAT into oblivion. Remember, Ann Wagner wants to protect the privacy of these cowards. Adina Friedman doesn't care what happens to any company on her exchange at NASDAQ as long as they appoint women to the board of directors. Then she feels like she's done her job. The bad secret is that in the United States of America, women own more financial wealth than men. So Adina Friedman, in her launch for glory to be one of the top most powerful women on Wall Street and more women on the board, I'm not saying that per se is bad, but by ignoring settlement, by ignoring this attack, in fact, once companies get on NASDAQ, it gets easier for these criminals and their hedge funds. But she ignores it. She hurts women. She hurts women, but she doesn't have a brain. She just has, hey, I'm a woman, women on the boards. Hey, this is great. Hey, and I got where I am because I'm talented. She's a doofus. She should be fired and put in prison. Of course, that's all my opinion. They should take back her $25 million a year, $27 million a year. The greed is unbelievable. But anyway, so Torchlight allowed Metamaterials to reverse merge into the NASDAQ shell that was Torchlight. It's a great deal. And in normal times, that's awesome. The criminals started selling Metamaterials from offshore, from Frankfurt, from wherever the hell. And they just crushed it. But no one quite could figure out. The board at Metamaterials is still listening to the lawyers who are liars, to the investment bankers who are devils. They raise money, more shorting, more selling, more destruction. But one thing George Pelecanos recognized as an inventor and a nanotechnology brainiac is he did not know anything. He's up in Canada. He didn't know anything about developing a project in Texas, Cote, the Permian Basin, possibly even an extension of the Permian Basin. But he had absolutely nothing. What the hell's he going to do with that? So he took the assets that were in the shell of Torchlight, which, by the way, technically means Torchlight wasn't a shell, but whatever. They took those assets, ring-fenced those assets, and called them Metamaterials Torchlight Partners, private partnership, Metamaterials Torchlight Partners. And they distributed it to shareholders of MMAT. I don't know what that basis was, but they distributed those MMTLP shares, if you want to call it that. It's more representation of the partnership as a private company, as a stub to shareholders, and he just got it out of his hair because he's got his job to do with 500 patents, and there's no value he can add to an oil and gas operation. So that was distributed. John Berta went on about his life. He started working on raising money in the private markets for other companies. Why? Because private markets are not corrupt. They don't have a Dina Friedman in there corrupting them. And you don't have the short selling. You don't have the collusion with the options markets. You don't have the derivatives markets in there. And you don't have a bird brain like a Dina Friedman overseeing the private markets. So then this little thing is sitting in everyone's account, and it's nothing. It's an afterthought. The same people who had originally come up with the idea, the geologists and the original players who I met with, not all of them, but a lot of them, because I tried to raise money for Torchlight. I flew to Texas. I met people from Ring Energy and from some geologist right now. I can't remember his name. I was in near Kansas when I met him. I met some guys in Texas. I made 3 or 4 trips down on the phone. I got people to buy into the stock, so I have some familiarity with it when it was Torchlight. Well, that same project was sitting there, and I'm sure they worked on it. I'm sure they had ideas. What are we going to do? How can we do? But the criminals, the cowards, without a name, from offshore, they create false documents, which FINRA approved and the SEC approved. They got it trading, and people came in to buy. I wouldn't be surprised if the criminals didn't come out hyping the idea of a short squeeze. You don't know. They do it all sides, but the key is they were able to sell more shares of a new security, MMTLP, that they didn't own. I personally think that you're probably in the hundreds of billions of dollars by the time this was all done that is transferred offshore, and there's a lot of money sloshing around to fight us with. So anyway, it started trading. You know the whole story about Jessica Hopper and the delays, and then the approvals, and then the stop trading, and all that. You know all that. But what you're not processing is on December 13th of 2022, MMTLP ceased to be. It was delisted. It was erased from the financial markets. It's gone. Doesn't exist. There's no assets. There's no claim on assets. There's no ticker symbol. There's no CUSIP number. It just isn't. So you say if MMTLP makes a settlement, MMTLP doesn't exist. It just does not exist. MMTLP is not going to make a settlement. There's nobody there. There's no there for somebody to be there. So what do you have? What do you have? You have 105 broker dealers. They all have lawyers. You have Nextbridge, who has lawyers. That's on the oil side. That's on the MMTLP. The progress in court right now is MMAT, who has lawyers and shareholders. And then there's broker dealers involved there who have lawyers. And then there's criminals in the United States who shorted the stock who have lawyers and probably lobbyists. There's the broker dealers who have lawyers, but there's also the prime brokers who have lawyers. There's market makers who have lawyers. FINRA has lawyers. There's journalists that'll buzz around. There's congressional committees, senatorial blowhards. Does NASDAQ have to lawyer up? Maybe. They have lawyers. Does the over-the-counter market have to lawyer up? Maybe they have lawyers. How about in Canada? The Canada Investment Banking and Canadian market, they have attorneys. So what's your guess? My guess is 400, 500 attorneys. They're all in competition with each other. Attorneys go to law school, and there's a lot of them, and they have no idea to create business, to make a business, build a business. They do know how to charge clients. Some get lucky. They learn to specialize, which is good, smart. Others flounder. Others go work at a big firm until they can't stand it anymore. But when they see this big pie, this big cake, they want a piece of it. So there's probably 400 attorneys. Now, are they all engaged in this right now? I don't know. But with the MMAT, you know you've got West Christian, you know you've got Pelicanos, if I said his name right. You've got MMAT. You've got the broker dealers, the prime brokers, the market makers. There's going to be discovery. Does it go to FINRA? Does it go to NASDAQ? I don't know. You got a lot of lawyers. Let's say there's 50 lawyers involved. 50. Each of those lawyers have to delineate who went to Harvard. That's the first thing they got to get across to each other, who went to Harvard. Once that gets out of the way, they're going to have to start talking about who has the expertise in this situation. There'll be a little bit of blowhard from some attorney to try to drive his or her agenda. Then there'll be the quiet, smart attorney who listens and raises a hand quietly to get just the information she needs. And then there'll be some attorneys that contact, and maybe it's West Christian, to settle. But where, Michael, in that scenario, can you even possibly begin to believe, one, that MMTLP will settle? It doesn't exist. But that there's going to be a settlement, a global settlement soon. I don't see it. Am I wrong? Sure, I could be wrong. When I first started with my whiteboards talking about this 2.5 years ago, this is what I talked about. And now here we are, 2.5 years later. I predicted the lawyers would drag this out. It's just the nature of the beast. That's how lawyers get paid. They also don't know what the F they're talking about, so they have to learn about it, and they charge their client while they're learning. And then as they learn, they're getting documents into the court, because nothing is evidence to an attorney unless it goes through the court and it's in black and white. It's accepted by the judge. The sun could have an eclipse, and if they saw it, that's not evidence. It's only evidence if the judge accepts that the sun had an eclipse. So they go through that process. It all takes time. It all takes time. The facts do not exist until they're entered into evidence. It takes time. It just takes time. And then slowly, the winning case, a case looks strong. But good lawyers on the other side find something that, oh, well, we, Your Honor, we didn't know our systems. We were following FINRA rule 28ZBF, and, just create doubt, create confusion, and start another lawsuit, start another claim. So this just go on and on and on. But eventually it'll get to the point where they've squeezed the lemon until the juice has run down their leg, and there's nothing else to do but try to settle. There's no attorney who represents a market maker, a criminal, a broker-dealer, a company, shareholder group, a prime broker, offshore group, if they show their face, a regulatory body. There's none of these attorneys who are going to recommend a settlement without a release and without protection that their client will not be exposed to further criminal or civil charges. I cannot, in that environment, think of who is going to drive a settlement. I used to describe that you needed one person to gather everybody. This could have been solved 2.5 years ago if one person had taken charge, but no one did that. And there's no incentive for anybody to do it, because you get the corrupt professor at Georgetown University to go to Congress and lie to Congress. You get lobbyists to go, and they've all been working this. You get people on Twitter to hold space calls and sow doubt. And then you ask this question, because I'm not making fun of you. I'm sorry. I get worked up because I get angry at those people on Twitter. You guys don't realize most of these people don't give a shit about you. They just don't care. It's incredible. They're getting paid, and there's a big payday. And maybe they're getting threatened by their clients. I don't know. But if you assume numbers as high as 2.6 billion shares counterfeit, and that might be in all of the securities, MMAT, MMTLP, Torchlight, I don't know. And Wagner wants to keep that secret. But if you just go with 2 billion, I don't know, put a number on it. $10, $5? And they didn't counterfeit it once. They sold it higher, bought it back, sold it again as it went up. I don't know. You're talking, I would guess you're talking $5 to $10 billion potentially here over time. That's a lot of money, a lot of lawyers, a lot to protect. And that's just one stock. And Jeff Easton and the Kramers and the Rubensteins, they're just bird dogs. They're just tiny gnats. They're just rats. They're just terriers compared to the huge elephants and rhinos and bears of this criminal activity. They're meaningless. It's these huge hedge funds that do this. They don't want it to stop. So with all of that money at risk, they haven't paid taxes. It's all offshore probably by now. They can buy bankers, they can buy Alpine, they can buy lawyers, they can buy people to come in here, seem calm, and they're really reasonable and they're on your side. They can buy receivers. Now, I'm not talking about GTI, I'm talking about MMTLP. That whole, I don't know if they've gone through any bankruptcy process. They can buy judges, they can buy congressmen, they can buy everybody. And what in your mind leads you to believe that there's going to be any settlement soon? Has there been a settlement since December of 22, 800 days ago? What gives you the confidence that there's going to be a settlement? Now, I've heard that because of Trump, because of Nunes, because of the hard work of the community, that things are moving. But what does that mean? That means to the criminals and the big funds, look, BlackRock or Blackstone just bought the Panama Canal. Blue Rock, Blackstone owns 40% of the Ukrainian farmland. Who do you think is going to redevelop Gaza Strip? I call me skeptical that Donald Trump is going to put these big funds at risk. Call me skeptical. But it could happen. It could happen. I think what really will happen is that they will have time, they've already had time to hide their tracks, cover their tracks, take the money offshore, move it around the system, avoid any kind of taxing, but any kind of tracing. But I think what might happen is that a guy like Musk or a guy like Cash Me Outside Patel or Anna Paulina Luna will ask for transparency. And if there's transparency, you might see fraud, you might see racketeering. But I go back to how long did it take to go after Bernie Madoff, start soup to nuts? How long did it take to go after Milken? And using those two names, what I think Wall Street will do is pick a scapegoat. They'll pick somebody to blame it on. They'll pick somebody to put in prison. They'll wrap it in a bow. It'll make the headlines, and everybody else will continue. I do believe that Trump can make a difference. I don't believe that the big banks and the big hedge funds are going to allow him to destroy them. So I think there'll be a lot of noise, attention, but I don't really see any reason to delay moving your shares because you anticipate a settlement. Now, what have the criminals done? Whilst you've been distracted on space calls to do nothing and leave Greg McCabe with his dick in his hand when he goes to Congress, he can't even tell him how many shareholders he has. So the lie on the other side, well, you don't know how many shares you have, so how do you know there's a big short position? We don't help out. We don't move the shares. Because we listen to the space calls. I don't know why we're like that, but I guess it's complicated. It's hard to understand what's going on. And we don't want to miss out on a settlement that would come to a non-existent share called MMTLP. If we go to a real share, a real company, we'll miss out on this worthless coupon. It's just a coupon that expires maybe. But hey, I don't want to give up that. It's like that Family Guy scene where if you show up to hear this sales pitch, you get a boat, and everybody on the street went to see this salesman pitch property in Florida, and what you got is a boat. Well, Homer and Lois show up at the salesman, and they get bored with it. They said, "Hey, we want our boat." And the salesman said, "Yeah, you earned it. I'll get it for you. But before you take the boat, I have this box. You can exchange your boat for this box." And Lois says, "Peter, come on, the the box is worthless. There's nothing in there. Let's just take the boat. That's what we came for. Well, at the end of the day, Peter's all confused. It confuses the situation. And Peter takes the box. It doesn't have anything in it. MMTLP doesn't have anything. So while we've been fighting, while we've been educating ourselves, while we've gone to Congress, while people have done amazing work, hard, everyday work, from Junk Savvy to Busy Brands to 100% to Pete from Philly to the Statue of Liberty to Anna, Queen of Trades to 100 people, 200 people working their ass off. While we've been doing that, you know what the criminals have been doing? They've been tortuously interfering. They have been threatening the health and the lives. This is the kind of people you're up against and the amount of money you're up against. They have been threatening the safety and the lives of the people who handle the leases at university lands. They've been threatening the safety and the lives of people at the companies, including Nextbridge. They're trying to make Nextbridge worthless. Now, do you think they threaten congresswomen? Do you think they threaten Ann Wagner? You know, if you want your daughter to go to Harvard, you better go along with this. Do you think they threaten the bag of birdseed brain Adina Friedman? Do you think they threaten the man that can't fit into his suits, Robert Cook? Do you think they threaten Gary Goober Gensler? I don't know. I do. But they are tortuously interfering with the value of Nextbridge. Well, are they going to win? Maybe. Maybe. But that's who you're up against. I don't think they're going to win because the oil that was created as these, as biological mass floating on the top of ancient seas was created the last time the Earth had all of its carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. I don't know. It's created in the Permian. Can Ollie see down my pants pocket? The Cambrian, the Ordovician, the Silurian, the Devonian, the Mississippian, the Permian. A long time ago. So whatever the shorts are doing isn't going to change the oil that's underground. That's not happening. So there are going to be people that use their expertise, their knowledge, their closeology, I hate that word, their seismic, the drilling they did to try to hang on to that acreage. There are people like Greg McCabe and his team who have decided to stay and fight, who are going to try their damnedest, and Greg's put his money up to, I don't know if discover's the right word, but to expand the drilling they've already done and prove up the Oro Grande. Well, none of that is going to go away. It's just a question of who's going to own it and how much of it. And what the criminals are doing is trying to get rid of the leases, bankrupt Nextbridge. They're suing the CEOs because everyone, all the lawyers at the SEC, everyone in the news, everyone, journalist or at school says, oh, it's the pink sheets. Oh, it's the CEOs. Oh, it's over the counter. And remember, Adina Friedman doesn't spend any money changing that. And neither does Robert Crook or Charlie Cheese Cromwell. So the criminals work in a mood that they've themselves created, that it's our fault that we bought MMTLP. It's our fault that we bought MMAT. CEOs are all bad. Adina doesn't know because she literally cannot critically think. She doesn't wonder, how is it all these companies meet the requirements to advance to the NASDAQ that I inherited? I didn't do any of the work to create it. I was just put here because I have a vagina. But I'm here and I'm smarter than men that should be here. And hey, the future is female. It's my time. But it doesn't occur to her. These companies make the requirements. They raise money. They have a business plan. But once they come on NASDAQ, they're not able to stay. And I'm going to delist 400, 500, 1,000 a year. All of these business plans are bad. All of these CEOs are bad. Maybe it's because they're all men. Maybe we need to make those CEOs women and they'll be successful. But she has no interest. And if she sees the numbers, she's not able to see a pattern because her brain is lost its critical thinking ability when she was 4 or 5 years old and everyone told her she was beautiful and she deserved everything, and she never had a moment where she had to fight for anything. She's got to go, if I haven't made that clear. But so does Robert Cook and Gary Goober Gensler and the Cromwell guy. But anyway, so the criminals are trying to destroy Nextbridge, and they're doing a pretty damn good job of it. Pretty damn good job of it. But they're not going to win, I don't think. I don't think they're going to win. The other thing the criminals has successfully done is the regulators, the lawyers, the lobbyists are now putting forth the storyline that Nextbridge is a public company. So Greg McCabe, who I think, beyond the call of duty, decided to file everything as if he were a public company, so we would have the information. It's full disclosure. The criminals are taking that action, that above the call of duty action, and they're converting it to Nextbridge is a public company. Well, guess what? The criminals offshore, and I can't explain it, 100% can explain it better than I can, but they get one share of Nextbridge trading in Chicago or something, and rumors are they are trading Nextbridge now. They're shorting it. But Ann Wagner wants to keep that secret because it's a violation of privacy. So from all sides, Michael, these criminals are spending the money they have stolen to win. And it's a lot of money. But it's not just this stock. That's why they are going to fight tooth and nail to protect disclosure. Do you think if they do all these things, they're going to allow Donald Trump to pull back the mask? I don't know. Could be. Could be. Could be. I'm not saying, I mean, Donald Trump has been amazing, and I'm not saying he wouldn't do it. But I guess my long, very long answer to your question must surely show you that there's many facets to your statement. If I move my MMTLP shares, they're not shares. It's just a piece of paper. It's actually a digital entry, and it shows up in your statement that has absolutely no value, none. It does have an implied value of all the lawsuits that could happen, but they haven't really happened yet. The lawsuit that's happened is MMAT. Donald Trump's going to force a settlement. What? What's the harm? What's the cost? What have you lost in Nextbridge, in MMTLP? What have you lost? MMTLP is worthless. So you haven't lost anything. Look, I'm not on the side of this. I'm just telling you, this is what the criminal apostrophe S, the criminals' attorneys will come into court and argue. And the lobbyists will argue. This is worthless. We don't owe Michael anything, or William. I'd probably be right. And then you'll say, well, this is worth shares of Nextbridge. Well, if you don't move it, you haven't claimed your property. At some point, if you don't claim your property, you abandon it. And if I were the criminals, apostrophe S, attorneys, that's what I'd argue. Michael abandoned his property. William abandoned his property. If that doesn't fly, and who's going to pay for our legal representation? But if that doesn't fly, the criminal, comma S, the criminals, plural, comma S, criminals, apostrophe S, attorney, will argue, well, Nextbridge isn't worth anything because the leases are not renewed. They haven't drilled anything. The CEO's under investigation. The criminals are pulling out all the stops. So what's the settlement going to be based on? The value of Nextbridge? The value of MMTLP? The opportunity cost lost of 2 days shortened settlement trading that could have been a short squeeze? Coulda, woulda, shoulda? Is the settlement going to be opportunity costs that if you had just sold the stock on Friday the 9th or Monday the 12th, you could have gotten $5, $10, $15, and then invested that stock somewhere else? And you've kept a careful record of all those winning trades since then? Maybe. But what is it that's going to settle? What is it that's going to settle? What is the cost? What is the harm? What was stolen? As of right now, people aren't even asking for their shares of Nextbridge. So any good law firm, any good lawyer, she's going to argue, hey, they didn't want their shares. Hey, Merrill Lynch stood ready to give Michael and William their shares, but they never asked for them. And Your Honor, it's been 3 years. How long do you expect us to keep this open entry on our accounting records? Your Honor, we file that after 6 months, William gave up his rights to the shares because he never asked for them. And my attorney, who I can't afford, my attorney will go in and say, well, Your Honor, William wasn't even familiar with what was going on until 6 months. We think he had until now to ask for it. 3 years later, their attorney will come back and say, well, Your Honor, that's not reasonable. William learned about it. The communities were going. There was information. William should have acted within the first year, Your Honor. And my attorney, who I can't afford to pay for, will say, Your Honor, we think that we should be given until 900 days. And the other side will come in and say, Your Honor, we think it's entirely unreasonable to go 900 days. At best, Your Honor, we think 2 years of opportunity was more than enough for William to ask for his shares. At some point, Your Honor, your offer is going to say, 2 years. So anybody who didn't ask for their shares in the first 24 months, their shares are forfeit. There's a risk of that. There's a risk of that. I think very strong risk of that. I think it's a powerful argument. But that's what Drew Diligence and his team have tried to get you to do, is do nothing. While the criminals have done everything from threaten lives to manage the journalism, to manage the message, and buy time. What settlement? MMTLP is not settling. It'll be Greg McCabe. It'll be George Pelicanos. I'm sure John Berta will be a part of it, and a whole group of those inner investors. It'll be our representatives. And if I measure her well, our champion will be a junk savvy. Our champion will be an Anna, Queen of Trades. If I measure him well, our champion will be Busy Brands. Our champion will be 100%. Our champion will be men and women whose names I can't remember, but I listen to all the time on Junk Savvy's space calls, which I highly recommend. But what is going to be the settlement right now? What is the settlement right now? What's the crime? What crime does your broker-dealer have to write right now? What crime does FINRA have to stand before a judge to defend themselves? What crime does the SEC maybe have to defend itself? Well, FINRA has immunity. I'm not positive about the SEC having immunity, but I would guess they do. So what crime? It's they sold counterfeit shares. Well, we're not able to get the blue sheets, and Wagner wants to keep it secret. But now there's the argument that Nextbridge is a public company, so you can't do anything about it. But bottom line, Michael, Greg McCabe can't prove that there is a naked short because we don't transfer our shares. We believe there is. We have in evidence that nobody's allowed to talk about because there's lawyers and discovery. We have a pretty good indication that there's anywhere from 400 or 600,000 shares counterfeit. I've heard numbers as high as 2.4 billion, but you can't, that's with a B, you can't prove it. Remember, it's not in the court record. Therefore, it's not evidence. It's just speculation. It's just hearsay. So what's the crime? What is, as you put it, what crime is MMTLP, as you put it, doesn't exist, guilty of? What are they going to make a settlement regarding what crime? There's only one crime that MMAT, and I suppose as long as it was around, whoever was running it, MMTLP and Nextbridge, could be held accountable for. You bought MMTLP. You're entitled to Nextbridge, 1 for 1. If they don't provide that, they've committed a crime. Whether it's securities fraud by promising it to you, or by theft or misallocation, they've committed a crime. Well, what did they do? MMAT distributed MMTLP, and then MMAT, Metamaterials, announced that MMTLP would be converted to shares in a private company of Nextbridge Hydrocarbons on such and such date, record date. And they did it. They did it. They distributed 165 million approximately shares of Nextbridge Hydrocarbons in place of the trading vehicle, although they never asked it to trade, vehicle that was called MMTLP. They did it, 165 million shares. So MMAT didn't break any laws. MMTLP ceased to be, but the flow through happened, so it didn't break any laws. The transfer agent processed it. They put some shares in individual investors' names, some shares in family office names and the fund names, and some in the street name. So the transfer agent didn't break the law. Who broke the law? Nobody. There's nothing that MMTLP or MMAT or Nextbridge have to settle. All right. So there's a lot of arguments that somebody broke the law and they owe us something. All right, who is that? It looks like what we're supposed to get is 1 share of Nextbridge for every share of MMTLP we have. It looks like there's more shares of MMTLP, which doesn't exist, out there than shares of Nextbridge. But we don't know because nobody, I think at least 60, 70 million shares still exist unclaimed. So we don't know. But we don't move because we figure we're going to get a settlement magically out of the air. Due diligence says we're entitled. Entitled to what? We're entitled for 1 share of Nextbridge for 1 share of MMTLP. That's what we're entitled to. And I should have brought it up. In the FAQ that FINRA put out in February, it said that William, Michael are responsible to ask their broker-dealer for the shares. It did not say, the regulator did not say that it should be automatically distributed, which I think was on purpose to get us in this nightmare. I think they should have distributed them and caught out the system. So it goes back to my point. If you don't ask for your shares, what's the crime? What have you missed out on? What exactly is the harm to you? The only thing Wall Street owes you is Nextbridge shares. So why don't you ask for them? They're there. It costs you $80. It costs you 2 FedEx packages. Why not go get them? You don't have to hire an attorney. It doesn't have to take 3 years. You don't have to prove anything. Just go do it. Okay, so what is the basis for all of this settlement and which I'm part? Look, I'm not on the side of the criminals. I want a big settlement. I want a big payout. But what is the basis for it? The core of it is these criminals have shorted stock that doesn't exist. They're breaking securities laws, but they're doing it in every small stock. And they're arguing that Nextbridge is a public company. And Ann Wagner doesn't want disclosure of the trades. This issue is bigger than MMTLP. It's bigger than MMAT. This shows that Wall Street has systemically expanded the number of shares, particularly in small stocks, by 10, 20, 30, 40 times. And they've done it through criminal activity, which in a perfect world would put the whole lot of them in prison. Okay. It's pretty exciting. But that's the Don Quixote challenging the windmills, and it's great. Let's catch them out. Let's blow it up. But who's going to pay for that? How quickly is that going to happen? You don't think the other side isn't going to put up a defense and every trick on the book? Do you think they're just going to roll over because we're calling them out on counterfeit shares? They haven't yet. What's going to happen right away? I don't think much. But anyway, that's fruitful. That's where we could get the big payouts. If the system felt that they were going to have to cover those shares They might come and settle. But is it imminent? Who is the system? Which of the 105 broker dealers are truly exposed? This lawsuit that we've made excellent progress on collectively, I didn't do any work on it, with MMAT, it's a huge breakthrough. But is there going to be a settlement because of it soon? I think that's highly optimistic. All right, so what's the other argument? The other argument is FINRA misled us. FINRA stopped trading. FINRA shorted MMTLP. But FINRA is a private company with immunity and lawyers. And apparently the authorization to both make rules and to enforce rules and to enforce security law. How quickly do you think they're going to settle? I would add what you've mentioned before, racketeering, and I think torture is, I think threatening people is criminal. What are we hoping for? We're hoping that Donald Trump, Kash Patel, Devin Nunes, Elon Musk, people really close to Donald Trump say something about short selling and put a stop to it. My own term, I haven't seen anybody else say this, I think they are taking fractional reserve banking and applying it to securities. So it's fractional reserve securitization, fractional reserve securities markets. And the US stock market, I don't know. I don't want to look it up. It's probably 100 trillion. It could be less than that, but let's just go with 100 trillion. But it's probably, most of those shares don't exist. This is created so banks can collect fees. This is created so banks can collect margin. This is created so banks can charge to lend shares. This is created so banks can do investment banking. This is created so banks can have assets under management. From BlackRock to Bluestone to Goldman Sachs to Red Robin Hood, LLC. So we expect Donald Trump to be smart in all ways except this one. And overnight, he's going to say to Wall Street, fractional reserve security the markets. That'd be like going into the currency markets and saying fractional reserve our money supply. Fractional reserve it. What would happen then? That would mean mortgages would have to be recalled, car loans would have to be recalled, commercial loans would have to be recalled, loans to companies would have to be recalled. You'd have to take the banking system, I think it's 99 to 1, but in theory 10 to 1. You'd have to shrink the banking system from 10 to 1 down to 1 to 1 overnight. No more fractional reserve banking. Well, obviously that would destroy banks. It would destroy wealth. It would cause a depression. But we expect Donald Trump to look at the securities markets and to defractionally reserve securities. There's no easy word for it. But it's, in essence, we expect Donald Trump to come in and say, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, Fidelity, Merrill Lynch, Alpine, Bear Stearns, all of you have on your books undelivered trades. Collectively, for the 165 million shares extant of Nextbridge hydrocarbons, we believe there are 1.5 billion shares out there that have been fractionally reserved, created out of nothing. But tomorrow, we want all of those reversed. We know this is going on in all shares of the market. So Tesla, DJT, GME, AMC, all of them. We're going to give you 90 days to get it done. That would cause a contraction in the stock markets around the world and here that would make the markets worthless. But if somehow we survived it and the world markets survived, the United States stock market would be no longer the biggest. It might be in the middle of the pack. This is a big ask of Donald Trump. It's a big, big ask. All right, so you're being too dramatic, William. All we want is Donald Trump to get a settlement in the Nextbridge / MMAT / Torchlight / MMTLP / some other security. He just has to do it just for MMTLP. Well, how realistic is that? He's gonna go in and surgically correct this abuse only for Nextbridge, Torchlight, MMTLP. He's going to seal the records so no one believes it's happening in the rest of the market. And there's going to be a settlement that doesn't get any headlines, and we're all going to sign off on it. Is that realistic? It might be. It might be. I know I'm being devil's advocate here, but I just don't see it. I don't see any of it soon. I'll tell you that much. I don't see any of it happening quickly. So what's your choice? You and my choice. We move our shares. It's not that we move them. We claim our shares. We claim our shares in Nextbridge before everybody else does. Right now, there's 70 million shares sitting there to be claimed, and everyone's not claiming them. I race over there while everyone else is distracted, and I claim my shares in Nextbridge. Why would I do that? Well, Nextbridge, I think, has a lot of smart, wealthy oil men and women involved. They have a lot of money on the line. They have good attorneys. They're going to benefit from the lawsuit and the discovery of MMAT. And I think Nextbridge has an enormous claim to the Oro Grande. And they may have actions against the criminals. So one way to benefit from all the crimes is to own the shares of Nextbridge. We already own them. And for some reason, I want to keep my little coupon, which has an expiry date on it. No, I think Nextbridge has value. But let's say Nextbridge somehow completely loses its Oro Grande. And let's say Nextbridge can't follow through on that. And maybe it goes into debt because of its lawsuit. So everything's bleak for Nextbridge on that one aspect. Well, guess what? Greg McCabe has already initiated progress in southern Louisiana. There's other projects out in the world. But up until recently, the oil and gas business in the United States has been starved for capital because the criminals have destroyed the over-the-counter markets and the ineffectiveness at best of the NASDAQ market. And they've put out this communist theory that the world is going to stop using oil and gas in 10 years. I mean, it's insane. Why? Because the criminals get to short everything to hell. Well, in that environment, Greg McCabe, who has probably, I'm going to guess 40 years, at least, maybe 45 years of contacts and experience in oil and gas, and his team do too. Greg McCabe sees oil deals. No one at an MMTLP sees a deal. Due diligence doesn't bring you a deal. But Greg McCabe is out there working the phones, accepting prospectuses and accepting PowerPoint presentations and listening and meeting for breakfast and joining Zoom calls and going to data rooms and calling geologists and checking down with his contacts at the courthouse, making a phone call late at night to somebody that has a connection with the McCullum well in Terrebonne Parish. Well, Bill, I don't see any risk at all in that well. That was my first experience with the McCullum well down in the McCullum well. I forget the exact address. I flew in, drove to it. I called up David Kelly, the CEO. I had all my clients in the stock, and when I visited, there was no activity out in the well. It's weird. I didn't know much about wells back then. I was in my 20s. But I called in to him. I said, "What's going on with the McCullum? You're supposed to be at 30,000 feet or 30 or 26,000 feet. What's happening? I mean, if no one's doing anything, there's no noise. What's going on? Is there something wrong?" "Well, Bill, I don't see any risk at all in that well." What he should have said is there's no oil at all in that well. But anyway, Michael, I've been learning, making mistakes, understanding oil and gas for a long, long time. And I know I don't know what I'm talking about, but that doesn't mean I haven't learned a heck of a lot. And the one thing I know is that a good oil man like Greg McCabe gets access to transactions before the rest of us see them. And the oil and gas business being starved for capital so long, I think it's coming to an end. But there's been enormous opportunities to skip public companies, go directly and buy into the projects and get huge returns before public companies even show up. That's all fading away because the wall of capital that exists out of New York, Chicago, and elsewhere, it is starting to come back in. I think ironically it might go to gold and miners first, but it's starting to come because these guys who act like sheep and they all invested in NVIDIA, they're starting to realize they have to go somewhere else. But what I do know is that McCabe can see a deal while it's priced at 10 cents. By the time we see it in the public space, it's priced at $10. So what does McCabe have to do? He's got to acquire an interest in it because the operator, the owner, the promoter even, that's showing it to McCabe, what they want out of McCabe is his name, his expertise, his investors, and his money. So what McCabe has to put up quickly, probably pretty quickly, he has to decide, this fits my parameters. It makes sense. I've played in that parish before. I know that I've made a few phone calls. It sounds real. So what do I have to do? You got to give 200,000. You got to put up 750,000 for, I don't know. I'm making it up. For 18 and 3/4% of this deal, you got to put up 2 million. So Greg gets on, calls around, gets the money together. He gets in this deal before anyone on the street sees it, before any analyst sees it, before anybody with the pinky on this finger and the Red Sox see it, before anybody puts out a glossy magazine describing it with its beta and its gamma and its it's in the whatever field, it's in the Haynesville, and it's got before anybody does all that pompous crap, he claims it. What's he doing? He's helping the originator keep the deal. So everybody's happy. He gets it at 10 cents. What does he do? My understanding is that what Greg McCabe has been doing is moving these projects into Nextbridge. No markup, no commission, no cost. I assume there's the cost of documents and filings, the hard costs will be covered. But he's giving his expertise, his ability to create a deal. He's putting it in Nextbridge. Now, in this case, let's say he's in the I'm trying to remember the sand, but it was the McCollum well. It was targeting the I can't remember. It's a salt dome. It was a salt. This is 30 years ago, or more. But let's say he's in this southern Louisiana heritage oil and gas trend, and he's bought an interest in this, let's call it White Castle, the White Castle Dome. And he's only bought this section, and let's mix names. It's going to be the McCollum well. Well, he's paid 10 cents of the cost for 18 3/4 working interest. Maybe he put up $1 million, $2 million. Well, what he knows how to do, which you and I don't, and we certainly don't do it without it saying Yankee on our forehead. He takes his 18 3/4 and he sells it down. He sells everything above 6,000 feet, 100% he sells that. He keeps let's say a 16th. Well, let's say he keeps, I don't think an eighth. Let's just say he keeps, I don't know if it'd be a 32nd, but let's just say he keeps 5% of everything below, or he keeps it all. I don't know, but that's the point. He breaks it out. He'll sell 100% of the more predictable structure. He'll keep the rest for free, or he'll keep a lesser amount for free. And then when it comes time to drill, Nextbridge either funds their own ownership or they farm that out. These wells in southern Louisiana, they can make a company. One well can make a company. Is it likely? No. That's why he's doing more than one. Is it likely that if you have a series of these wells, that each time you participate, if the first one didn't work, does that increase the odds of the second one working? No. But in total, you have a dozen of these, increases the odd of one or two maybe working. You don't know which ones. But he can structure it in a way that he buys the interests, gets his original money back or more by selling it down, and then he transfers that to Nextbridge. And he's been doing that. It's in the press releases. That has nothing to do with Oro Grande. That has nothing to do with the criminals. Yes, there's some risk with the lawsuits, but he can win those, I think. Now, these wells that are going to be drilled, they're conventional wells. They're deep. They're deep. But they can have, depending on how he breaks down his ownership, they can have fallback zones if the deep target doesn't work. But if you hit, I don't know, if you hit 1 TCF, 2 TCF of natural gas, let's call it a TCF. And I don't see, that's the thing. I haven't done any financings recently. I don't know what that's worth in the ground. It used to be that that had value in the ground that was significant. My guess is it's probably not worth more than, there's too many variables. If it's just one well, it's got a low value. If it's part of a trend or if it comes with other participation, it might be more. But if you say it's worth 50 cents in an acquisition, which I think is probably low, but I don't know. I'm admitting I don't know. But if it's worth 50 cents in the ground, but it's worth a lot more if you produce it. And the odds are it would be produced because we're a minority partner. We're not going to make that decision. So whoever drills it is probably going to produce it. The natural gas comes out quickly in southern Louisiana. It could come out in 7 years. It could come out in 4 years. So that trillion cubic feet could be produced very quickly. But if it's worth 50 cents, I mean, I must have done something wrong. A TCF at 50 cents, and let's say we own 75% of that collectively. And then let's say that Nextbridge retains 6.25%. It's just such a big number. I must have made a mistake somewhere. I think it's billions of dollars. And Michael, I'll promise to do this on a pad of paper so that it's as accurate as I can make it. And I'm admitting to you I could be wrong. But one well that hit big, and we had 6, 7, 10% of it. And I am talking massive success, which I think the odds of that per prospect are probably less than 1 in 10. I mean, these are risky wells. But Michael, I'm embarrassed to give this number, but it's what I just calculated, and I reserve the right to do it again. But I think if one of these wells hit in big time, big time, it could be worth $90 a share to Nextbridge right now. So let's chop that. Let's take a third of that. So maybe it was worth $30 a share. Let's say I'm wrong and it's worth $3 a share. My point is, there are reasons to own Nextbridge, which I would race for. Outside of the Oro Grande, outside of due diligence, outside of space calls, outside of settlement, outside of lawyers, outside of all of it. You've got Greg McCabe creating value for Nextbridge by wheeling and dealing in oil properties, and he's chosen, at least for one of his places to go, the Gulf of America. His strategy is, instead of going offshore, Gulf of America, he'll stay onshore, because when the dinosaurs were roaming, that's where the Gulf of America went. It was called Gulf of Dino. It was called Flintstone Gulf back then. But it's cheaper to drill onshore. There's a little bit of noise and there's a little bit of cost in the seismic. But there's you can get the seismic done. And there's a lot of opportunity to go deeper for these gas targets. So I made up a hypothetical. We don't know what these projects are but we will know it. And I'm telling you, Michael, it's idiotic to stay in your coupon when you can go over to Nextbridge and you have a CEO and a team who have put up tens of millions of dollars, and they are applying their knowledge, and yes, they are going for some home runs and grand slams. So it may not come to fruition, but 10%, 5% of one of these deep targets can make a company. And why you would stay in the coupon, because you might get a settlement, when you can take control of your own life and eventually just get value out of Nextbridge, I can't understand. Now, let me answer your question. Which shows it's not your fault. It's intentional by the people on space calls. They get you talking this way. If you move to Nextbridge and there is a congressionally mandated settlement for fraud, for breaking securities laws, for torturous interference, I think that's unlikely because that's out in the open. Okay, but if there is that, or if in one big legal case or many legal cases, there's a rolling settlement for racketeering, for securities fraud, for tortious interference, and criminal and civil, any of that. The question is, will those settlements somehow not come to me because I took Nextbridge shares? Because I took the action to preserve my financial interests rather than sitting in a coupon. The only other settlement would be a Trump mandated settlement, the executive branch through the SEC, FINRA. Highly unrealistic, but let's say there is, and it comes down, and then they go to the broker dealers. It involves the DTCC, but it's done from the regulatory side. So there's Congress, regulatory, or the legal system. And let's just assume magically it doesn't take a long time. I don't think there's any value to Nextbridge as an alternative to MMTLP in the legal courts or in Congress or in the regulators at this time. I've already tried to show you, there's huge upside in Nextbridge. There's huge risk because of lawsuits, because of physical threats, because of criminal actions. But I think anybody can pull it off. It's Greg McCabe. And he's already started on it. And he, as far as I can tell, unlike other operators who have come before us, is operating with his cards up, and he's not raping us. He's not taking advantage of us. But on December 13th of 2022, MMTLP went away. It just ceased to be. The only value it had was Nextbridge. So what can you argue, what can I argue to the court, to Congress, to Trump, that Nextbridge is worth right now in 2023, in 2024, in 2025? What can I argue that Nextbridge is worth? I don't think it's a big number for that period of time, particularly since there's still shares available. I don't think Nextbridge is worth, I mean, if you looked at it right now, I think it'd be very hard for an appraisal of Nextbridge to come up with a positive valuation. I think it would be negative right now. Now, you could get an investment bank or a research analyst, probably, I think, to come up with an analysis of Nextbridge's assets, even in southern Louisiana, and you might get a positive valuation. But for the purposes of the court, they're not going to accept that. That's speculation. What is it worth right now? I'm going to guess it's probably negative. The obligations to lawyers, the threat of losing its leases. Again, lawyers are going to say that's all speculative. I really think it's going to be hard to come up with a cost. What is the loss to Michael if he doesn't get his shares of Nextbridge? So I don't know what settlement you're expecting out of the SEC, out of FINRA, out of Congress, out of Trump, out of the legal system in terms of the value that you missed out on for the last 800 days in Nextbridge. I really think lawyers and lobbyists will get that number down to de minimis. So, what else could you be waiting for on a settlement? It would be the argument that MMTLP would have squeezed on December 9th and Friday, December 9th and Monday, December 12th, that first you'd have to argue, you have to get over the FINRA argument that trading was meant to stop on Thursday because the announcement was meant to refer to regular way settlement. I think it's a specious argument on FINRA's side, but it might, you don't know, it might work when Trump calls the SEC. I don't know. But you're going to argue that you missed out and I missed out on a short squeeze on the Friday and on the Monday, because on the Tuesday, it didn't trade. It stopped trading on Monday. I'm on your side on that. I think the trading could have been done shortened settlement, same day, next day settlement. Friday it could be next day, Monday it could be same day settlement. You can market your tickets. I also think there's evidence that there was trades made at 2,400, maybe as high as 24,000 a share. That's going to require discovery. That's going to require forensic analysis of, in my opinion, the likelihood of destruction of documents, destruction of trades, destruction of computers, destruction of evidence. I think the other side is capable of that. So, assuming that we get beyond everything the other side throws at us, which I think is going to be big, constant, unpredictable. The question comes, could Michael, could William, could all of the class, had they sold all of the class, which everybody be in, what could they have sold their shares in a squeeze for? And how would it break down across the whole class? And if indeed the shares would have squeezed. And that would be a legal argument. They'll call expert witnesses. I think in the legal side, that could go on for months, if not years. And I think one of the arguments made would be, well, you know, how do you know there wouldn't have been more selling on Friday and on Monday? I don't know. That'll be determined in, I think, years of court hearings. In the Trump side, coming down through the SEC, FINRA, and executive order, as soon as the memo got longer than a page, and as soon as the explanations got longer than, well, we're not sure there would have been a squeeze, I'm not optimistic that Trump's going to cause a settlement for a missed out short squeeze. You really think that Trump, when he's trying to stop wars, he's trying to rebuild the nation. He's going to decide that his political capital should be spent on making sure a settlement comes to people who bought shares of MMTLP for a short squeeze. I don't see that happening. But it could. But what's the number, Michael? What's the number? And then on the congressional side, just to be quick, I don't see anything happening on the congressional side. So let's say it comes down from the regulatory and it comes from Trump. And he says, these are firemen, these are the military, these are policemen, these are housewives, these are scientists, these are mothers, these are single women attorneys, these are men, these are whatever, these are minorities. I want this done. Okay, so Michael, what would the settlement be? What number would they pick? And let's assume lawyers don't have, there will be lawyers, but let's assume Donald Trump says, I get the lawyers out of the room. SEC, you sit here. FINRA, you sit in the Oval Office. Over the counter, you sit here too. DTCC, you sit in here. Blankenfield, you sit here. Black, you sit here. Fink, you sit here. Griffin, you sit here. And Cohen, you sit here. And Patel, you sit here. Paulina Luna, you sit here. AOC, you sit here. And Schumer, you sit here. So it's bipartisan. I want a number. What should the number be for missing out on a short squeeze? Michael, I cannot see Donald Trump coming up with a number. Even in his most generous, I think the most he'd want to give is what anybody paid for their shares plus some sort of penalty. So let's say he says, all right, I'm gonna put out an executive order that because all these people committed fraud, because they were promised and all these good Americans bought and the pain and suffering and all that. Let's just say that he says, I'm going to pay out the highest number anybody paid for MMTLP. Well, that automatically gives great returns to most people. That's $12. On top of that, I'll add God, I just can't see him doing it. I'll add $3. I'm going to mandate that the banks have to pay everybody $15 for their shares of MMTLP / Nextbridge. So your question is, if I moved over to Nextbridge, would I not be part of that settlement? Well, were you defrauded? Of course you were. You couldn't trade Nextbridge. So yes, you'll be part of that settlement if you want to be. Well, why wouldn't I want to be? Exactly. You would want to be. What's the only thing that might happen? The only thing I see might happen if Nextbridge becomes verifiably worth $2. By the time this happens, maybe the payout's $15 and you get 13 instead of 15 because Nextbridge is $2. That's possible. But my guess is you'll get the 15. Nextbridge will receive, Greg McCabe will receive a payout. All the whales in Nextbridge will receive a payout. My guess is that money will flow back into Nextbridge. Nextbridge might get a payout in that scenario because they may own some shares. I don't know. So I'm trying to express to you, I don't see a big settlement. I don't see one happening soon, but even if it does, you will be part of it because you, even if you had, you did own MMTLP at the time of the potential short squeeze, but even if you had owned Nextbridge at the time, Jessica Hopper precluded trading. So you're going to get that settlement. And Greg McCabe's not going to chop it up. He's going to make sure the settlement is for all. All right, what's the other thing? Opportunity costs. Yes, if there's a payout for opportunity cost, you're going to be part of it because you missed out on trading Nextbridge and getting out of it and having the cash, but you also missed out on what Nextbridge could have become had the criminals not been there. Nextbridge could be public by now. Nextbridge could be already cash flowing. Nextbridge could be in the middle of being sold to another company if the criminals hadn't interfered and the brokerage firms and the DTCC and et cetera are complicit. So yes, I think in a settlement that involves opportunity costs, you will participate. In a racketeering case, whether it's pursued through the court system or it goes through Congress and somehow the executive branch, I think it'll all end up in the court system. Yes, you were hurt by it. And so on. But the question comes, Michael, what are the damages? Are you trying to win justice for the whole stock market and to clean up the whole market? Look, in the banking system, there is, in essence, full disclosure. Everybody knows that they take your deposits and they expand them. They create money out of thin air, 10 to 1. I think it's as high as 99 to 1. One thing Trump could do is just disclose it. This is what we do in our securities markets. Well, that would solve the problem. Just disclose it. I'm trying to go through any situation in my head that you would not participate in a settlement. And I think because the whales control the majority of the stock here, and although anything can happen over time and anything can happen in court hearings, makes for strange bedfellows, I believe any settlement will cover all people. It has to. How do you divide it out? But if you think hanging on to your coupon puts you in a stronger position, I think you're out of your gourd, as Ham would say, whatever that means. If you hang on to this thinking somebody else is going to go fight legal cases and you've got a huge payday, I don't think you're absorbing how much damage has been done by 800 days of delay to the big payday. If you think Trump is going to come saddle his administration with $100 billion payout or a $10 billion payout, I think we're expecting quite a bit out of Trump. Now, if it goes the legal route and they find fraud, they find tortious interference, they find racketeering and et cetera, yeah. But that's 10 years away, 40 to 60% will go to the attorneys. There'll be a new Peter Angelos. It'll be Wes Christian or his daughter. His daughter will own the Dallas Cowboys by then. And in the meantime, by holding on to your coupon, you miss out on the fact that Nextbridge could become a $10, $15 stock, $20 stock, $50 stock in a bull market, all on its own some. So I don't know. I don't know if I tied my thinking together in that answer, but I'm going to stop anyway. I feel like I have some loose ends I didn't address. I think anybody who does not move their shares, so-called shares, non-existent shares of MMTLP, I think somebody who doesn't cash their coupon in for real shares of Nextbridge is working against the community, is working against their own financial interests, and working against their own potential to get a benefit of Nextbridge doing something separately, well, in the shares, but I'm doing something away from Ora Grande and all the criminal activity. And no, I do not think you're going to miss out on a settlement. And in fact, I just thought of, if you own Nextbridge and they start scrambling to cover shorts in Nextbridge, the only way to benefit from a short squeeze is owning shares of Nextbridge. Do not buy into the argument that MMTLP will ever trade again. It doesn't exist. This is another canard put out there with a group of people on Twitter. There will be no short squeeze in MMTLP. So I think if you own Nextbridge, you have a chance of big payout from Nextbridge, making money from Nextbridge. You still have the potential of making money in the lawsuits, because what they're not going after what you lost per share in value, because it doesn't seem to be very much. What they're going to go after is what you lost in terms of opportunity cost, what you were defrauded, what the criminals did by racketeering, and what the criminals did to the company by physical threats, and also by the opportunity costs to the whole company. All of those will redound to you, even if you own the shares of Nextbridge, because you were hurt by them. And then I think the whales are going to insist that all settlements include that. Do you think Greg's going to go along with a settlement that only benefits people that held on to the coupon? I don't think so. So I think you're crazy not to move your shares. I think it helps the cause if you move the shares. And I think you already own Nextbridge. That's the argument they're telling Congress. They own Nextbridge. They just haven't asked for it. Go get your shares in Nextbridge. Remove all doubt. Go get them. I think you'll be very happy that you did. I'm sorry it's a long answer. I've tried so many times to get this answer across. I mean, they have thousands of hours of space calls, so please excuse me my very long answer. So Stoney says, we put in money and the money is God. Stop trying to dumb it down, William. We all want our fucking money. It's hard to dumb that down. What does it matter where you get your money, Stoney? I want my fucking money, so I'm going to hang on to my fucking coupon. And I'll be dead by the time lawyers get it done for me. Or by the time West Christian settles, but I'll be in my wheelchair, but I'm going to get my fucking money. Or why not go claim your shares? You've already waited 850 days. Why not wait another 800 days and see what Greg McCabe can do? And if the stock goes up, does that count as getting your fucking money? Or is that a different, if that's different money? The only way you want your fucking money is I want reimbursement for the shares through this coupon. I want to get it from the brokerage firm. I want to get it from the DTCC. I want my fucking money. All right. I didn't realize this was the level of thought, and I take full responsibility. I respect Stoney very much. So obviously I've totally dumbed it down, and I'm not speaking to the issue. And I think it's best if people go to Junk Savvy. If you want to leave your so-called shares of MMTLP in coupon form, please do it. It's up to you. I can't encourage you. Apparently, I'm presenting things in a very dumb way, and it's clear to get your fucking money. The best thing to do is to hang on to your fucking coupon, and that's just how it fucking is. And with that, I'm gonna fucking sign off.